Two of the smartest minds on the planet debate free will. Do we have it, or are we predestined to do certain things? Let's see what they have to say. Alright guys, let's roll.
Charles, I want to compare notes on free will.
Oh, one of my favorite things
Isn't
to ask
it?
about. Here's my take. It is true that at some level of resolution that we can observe, causality is absolutely true. Given these initial conditions, this is what will happen afterwards.
That's the physicist.
That's the physicist in you
Right,
speaking.
exactly.
So if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything is predetermined by things that
Everything has an antecedent.
whether you know it or not, something is causing it to happen.
Something
Right.
Right. The way things impact our subconscious influences our decisions. And at large, that can be programmed if somebody has a lot of power and access to the media, control over the media, control over what we see, what influences we receive as everyday people. I've always kind of thought about that. It's interesting to hear these guys talk about it who've studied it.
interpreted the thing
That's
that
right.
caused the thing
That's
that
right.
made
It's
that
always
happen.
going to happen. But
Right.
there is also stochastic uncertainty in the universe. It's built in. There's randomness, there's unpredictability. Yeah. And so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level?
Is there chaos though, or is it just unknown to us though? That's the thing that I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but like I feel like to a certain extent, this stochastic randomness that he's talking about, or whatever he called it, I think stochastic literally just does mean random. I'll have to look that up and confirm. But or at least variable is probably what it means. Whatever you call it, right? This stochastic uncertainty, is that just because we don't know? If we had modeled it enough and seen enough of a sample size and been able to observe the full population of whatever event it is and all the spectrum of it, would it map out to some sort of distribution eventually? Or do we just not have that knowledge? You know what I mean? Or is it truly random and we're never going to be able to predict it? I don't know. I would think that if you had enough of a sample size on every phenomenon in the universe, you could probably map that out. I've always felt that things were pretty much predestined. That's something that I thought about. Like even when I was in college, I would think like, I don't think we really have true control over any of our actions. I think that given the entire external environment, if we knew that and it was fixed, you could predict a person's life. If you had knowledge of every single thing,
Of chaos.
you
Actual
could predict the decisions they would make. That's what I've thought, but
really affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment. Right?
But wouldn't all those past experiences and your current environment, despite the fact that if you're introducing an element of chaos so that you've never experienced this ever before, your experiences that you have had would then inform your decision about the thing that you've never experienced.
Your inform is the word.
Oh.
Is it
Rather
inform
than
or dictate?
predicate. Right.
Right. Or require.
Oh.
Right. That's the thing. Yeah. Let's say you're in a room with a whole bunch of
I don't think he's making an argument one way or the other. He's just posing both sides. But I don't think you can rule out that being predestined. Yes, your previous experiences inform what you do in that situation, as do the external circumstances of the situation, right? But if you know all of these variables, you know what's happening externally, the situation the person is in, their previous experiences, other external circumstances, controlling factors, other independent variables. Can you predict that DV with accuracy, right? And I would say the answer is yes. You can predict that. I would think if you knew everything there was to know besides that action by a person that was deemed to be free will, I think that you could predict what they would do with relative certainty. And especially if you had a sample size of those circumstances. If you had seen this exact circumstance with this exact type of person hundreds of millions of times before, I think you would have a pretty good idea of what was going to happen.
audience members. You tell a joke.
Right.
It falls flat. In that moment, you have many things you could do to turn it into a laugh point.
True.
Right? You hear silence, and you'd be like, "Oh, that was good," and then everyone laughs. Or so you make some
Or
sort
is
of
this mic on? That's
right.
the old one.
Right.
What do you do? Do you have the freedom to choose one of several choices that you had designed from your past, that you prepared to deal with that eventuality? Or is the choice made for you already?
But if he was less experienced, he might not dig out of that hole as effectively or efficiently.
Exactly.
But if you've been in 100 cases where you had a joke bomb,
Right.
you have data on how to pull out of it.
Exactly.
So statistically, you have a chance of getting people
And it
to smile.
happens instantaneously. You
Right in
don't
the
even
moment.
realize that it's happening.
It's in the
you know?
moment.
So it's
But
in the
yeah,
moment. Right.
Did you have free will to not?
see, that's right. So now that would be interesting because here you are in a place where your instinct, your training, and
Your
your
10,000
desire,
hours, 10,000 hours, whatever it is.
will, as a reflex, cause you to say this, this, and this, and then people go, "Wow, that was great! Look how he turned it around."
So, Charles, can I say in that comment that he preloaded his neurosynapses so that in that moment, they all tripped.
Right.
They tripped meaning triggered to go to the solution to that problem.
Right. The same is true.
But then I wouldn't have free will at that point.
That's
It
what
would
I'm
just
saying.
be a response. What I would have is a response to a situation,
Right.
not necessarily. I wasn't really choosing that.
It chose it for you.
It chose it for me.
You have 5 choices, and then your system chooses one of the 5 or
In that moment.
In that moment, right? And so in that moment, you are not exercising free will. Did you set it up though with free will in the past so that you could react this way deterministically, but you actually were in control of the circumstance, right? Here's another physical example of that. A football player is trying to sack a quarterback. The quarterback jukes left. The person trying to sack the QB doesn't have enough time to think about whether to move left or right or up or down. It has to react based on years of training and practice and experience.
Muscle memory, right?
So in that moment,
And if you expand that analogy to the entire universe, it kind of makes sense. If instead of just neurosynapses or whatever, it was also all organisms in the universe and every other thing, right? And the way they behave. Is this just programmed?
that action is not free. But in the setting up,
You definitely can't disprove that, right? I mean, we don't have the data to disprove that, to show that there's a distribution or anything like that. And it's not all causal effect. But I'm agnostic. I do think I do lean towards predetermination to an extent.
of that moment, if it was free,
Even if you think you're being programmed to do something, like you're being like tricked into doing something and you try to break that, isn't your willingness and work ethic or whatever you want to call it, your gumption to break out of that, isn't that part of how you were coached and how you built your own life to be like strong-willed? So that's still a part of your programming and informs, as they said, what you're going to do next.
enough, does that constitute free will? From a physics perspective, it might not. Then again, from a psychological point of view or from a biological point of view, it might.
Wait, what good are you if you're not landing on one side or the other? I don't need you to. It could be this, it could be that, and I'm right both ways.
Yeah.
Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Yeah. Well, he's saying I don't really have the free will to make that determination. I'm going to be right or wrong.
Let's just ask an opinion. In my opinion, I would like to have free will exist in this universe, even though philosophically it can be argued that it does not exist.
Are you happy with a world where you perceive free will, even if it isn't?
Maybe. This has to do with the movie Arrival, right, starring Amy Adams.
That's so interesting, honestly.
Yes.
Where if you know how your future is going to
I think that's the way most people live. They feel like they have free will. They don't understand that they're a living organism that can be programmed and manipulated.
turn out,
I feel like I'm aware I don't have free will, and I'm going to exert what I've believed to be free will, but I'm going to understand that that's something that my subconscious and my conscious mind have been programmed to do through my past experiences, by myself and my own previous behavior, by other people, whatever it might be. I think that whatever decision I make in the moment is a product of my past experiences and the external situation that I'm in. It's kind of an equation. It's like, A plus B, 2x plus y, pretty much. 2 times my past experiences and how it informs my behavior plus external circumstances equals outcome. That's the way I feel it is.
would you like to live your life anyway? Right? And the answer is yes.
Of course, it would be a much more complicated equation than that, but you get the idea.
I would. But I still would like to think that the future is not yet predetermined.
No, but no, what? It's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it. I'm saying, would you still be happy with life if some alien said, "Look, dude, your life is predetermined. There's nothing you can do about it. Keep on believing you have free will," and then they go back to their planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
A puppet on a string.
That's
from a free will puppet.
You're a free will puppet on a string.
What I would say in that case is that I would hope that the knowledge that I have that puppet on the string circumstance allows me to circumvent it. I can find a way. If it's fate, right?
Could you though? Could you? Because even if you refuse to go with your gut choice or what you would do in a normal situation, that's also because of the programming. That's the kind of the analogy I just made, not the analogy, the point I just made, the illustration I just drew, right? If you have that strong will, that's also a product of your previous experiences, and your stubbornness could be informing the decision you make given X, Y, Z conditions around you. You know what I'm saying? So like, now that I know that I'm being predetermined and driven to certain decisions, I'm just going to do this instead. That's also a decision that's shaped by previous experiences. You see what I'm saying? Like, no matter what, you can't escape the predetermination. It's kind of fucking trippy if you think about it.
Hey, you've seen so many Greek mythology stories where you try to avoid the fate of whatever the gods have
And the act of avoiding it
makes it happen.
Like Oedipus, for example.
Oedipus
Right.
would be the most
Famous of those.
egregious example. Yes.
Sorry.
So the bottom line is, yes, I would still be satisfied with trying to do something different, because even the illusion of trying to do something different is in itself a form of free will. Physics-wise, though,
It's not.
that's the challenge.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So Neil, if you had to right now decide that free will does exist or doesn't exist, what would you prefer?
My thinking over the recent years, because I didn't used to think about this at all, my thinking over recent years is leaning towards the absence of free will for practically everything we think and do in our lives.
I agree.
And I base that on the fact that over time, things that we have done as people in our species, at one time was you are totally to blame for that, or something you did, or something we've learned, no, this person is more susceptible than you are to addiction.
Right.
There's a biochemistry there. This person cannot just be made the life of the party because they're on the autism spectrum. They don't control that in the
That's not funny.
way you might think they should.
I'm definitely not neurotypical, so I think I have undiagnosed Tourette's, and I'm definitely on the spectrum in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not saying that to dilute it and take away from people who really, really are on the spectrum, but I'm just saying I've observed my own behavior, and I feel that I have some issues for sure.
Just because you're the life of the party. As you add up all of these things, let's go back to epilepsy, where before that was even a word, you were occupied by the devil. Did you do something bad? Or, well, you knew it was not everyone knew you were not in control of it. But today, no one is saying, did you have the free will to not have an epileptic seizure? Of course not. Do you have the free will to not be depressed? The person who's ready to jump off the bridge, in that instant, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? I don't think so. And the more I add up and explore the human condition, I'm forced to conclude that the direction we are headed is that we are all products of an absence of free will. And as a result, society needs more compassion for people who do not otherwise fit in.
See, I have the exact opposite
That's deep. I agree. That's deep as fuck.
position in my own mind.
But most people are going to say it's your fault for something happening, and a lot of people are going to assign free will to things that have, you got to think about, look at it in politics, when socioeconomically underprivileged people commit crime, the first thing that people are going to do is blame them for that and be like, you should have done something differently. But a lot of the time, not only is it easier for them to commit the crime, that doesn't justify committing the crime, right? But at the same time, they are conditioned to commit crime. They think that's the way. And they think that's the way, they think, oh, it's all about my respect. It's about this, it's about that. And that's programming. That's not just a free will based decision, right?
Feel that it is because of the absence of free will that you see in most behavior, that it is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion. They can't move
there
towards
was a day when no one even thought to analyze it that way, as a brain disorder.
Yeah, you were just an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Now, if they can't, you can. You can show that person compassion or understanding. And therefore, free will as an entity exists.
Charles, you're drawing a line
even
that I have seen be in constant motion over the decades and over the centuries. That line that you're saying, they don't have free will, but I do.
But your ability to express that empathy may not be free will. That might be predetermined by, the influences you've been exposed to and the thought patterns you've been programmed to think, which were programmed by other people who were programmed to think a certain way and to influence you by other, you know what I mean? It's just a chain reaction, but it's still predetermined. It's possible. It's possible that if you started with the Big Bang again, everything would happen exactly the same way again, right? Because it's causal. That's what I think Neil deGrasse Tyson, that's the position he's taking. And that's what I've thought and kind of argued with myself about for a long time now, over a decade. Since I first started taking psychedelics.
I don't know that I can...
See, I have free will over some things and not over others. Okay. Someone can see me and say, that person needs help in this way. And
you believe you have that free will, right? You believe you're making these conscious decisions that are not informed or controlled or dictated by a combination of a multitude of things, including your external circumstance and your subconscious mind and how it has been programmed in the past. And maybe even the behaviors you were taught to exhibit, right? Consciously. But you were taught to behave this way. Hey, when someone disses you, you walk away. Somebody else might think when someone disses you, you punch them in the face. Two different philosophies, right? And those are taught behaviors, those are conscious, but those are still informed by past experiences. So it's not free will. That's what I think I'm arguing here, and I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is also on kind of the same page and wavelength. It's like it could theoretically not be free will at the end of the day.
Has the free will to help me. I see somebody else who needs this help and free will. Together, it is a network. It's not that any individual.
So you have to draw the line for every individual and even perhaps for society.
Okay.
Does the criminal who's born in poverty have free will to not be a criminal if most of the people in prison came in below the poverty line? So there's some sociological force operating there.
So
it's funny, I use the same exact analogy.
That where we are less susceptible to that force.
I think that's a great analogy. Let's say this. Say those folks who have been branded criminals by our society are incarcerated.
Yes.
We can then, who we're fortunate enough not to face those same circumstances, who are not incarcerated, can look at these incarcerated people and instead of saying we must keep them away from society, welcome them back.
So that's called restorative justice.
Yeah, that's a free will example of the exercise of free will.
Of society.
But is your decision to do that as a society really free will? Or is that just kind of the natural progression of predestination? Like, was that bound to happen? You can't really say that that's free will conclusively. I'm not saying it's not free will.
Society toward individuals who may not have had the options, had the life experience to recover from a bombed joke.
I saw an old movie where there's a guy who was a junkie, right? And he needed help. But they said, no, the cops came and arrested him because he was a junkie. Right. Today, you wouldn't do that. Right. You would say the person needs help.
They need, right.
Even if that person had robbed somebody, that person needs treatment. Yes. And the people who cannot shake whatever it is that afflicts them tells me that free will cannot be as free as we think it is. Do you remember the shooter?
Oh, I agree.
in the University of Texas at Austin.
I remember that.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a movie they made out of it called The Tower.
Yeah.
Where he left a note saying, I just want to kill people. Something must be wrong with my brain. Please, when I die,
Look into this.
They looked, and there was a tumor putting pressure on a part of it. In fact, that's how we learn anything about how the brain works when
And
you have
this
situations like this.
Person had the free will to write a note. He had the free will to write the note.
Can you conclusively argue that that's free will, though? Or was that just what happened? How do you know that was free will? Even if he thought it was free will, and he expressed that it was free will, it might not have been free will. It might have been predetermined. Again, the same arguments I've been making this whole time.
So he did not have the will to resist shooting. But that's the line that you were talking about is a partial one.
Why isn't that line always in motion as we learn more and more about how the mind works?
It is.
Okay, so then maybe it's a line of convenience today, but tomorrow we're going to find out, oh my gosh, that person has no real free control over their behavior, over their personality, over their tendencies, over their treatment of others.
It's not a line of convenience. It is, in your words, a perimeter of ignorance. When Newton said we couldn't explain certain things,
right?
God must have done it.
Of course.
That's a God of the gaps.
Of course.
That delineates what we don't know. The line you describe, I hope, is in fact that perimeter of ignorance which we slowly are moving toward and moving so that we do understand what the true nature of free will is.
So this is where people will push back. Most
God of the gaps and perimeter of ignorance, those are two terms I'm going to add to my bag. Two concepts, really. God of the gaps is funny because that is a primitive concept, right? We use that maybe not even to attribute things to God, but we use that gaps argument a lot. Just fill in the gaps with some arbitrary explanation, whether it be God or in everyday life, some other shit, right?
people are concerned not about the actions, but the consequences. So what they're thinking about is the punitive response to someone who does something wrong. And is a punitive response a deterrent for somebody doing something wrong or doing something wrong in the future?
Especially if they don't have the free will.
Right.
So there's the other side of this entire analysis is how does society interact with people who are being brought into the circle day by day. We're learning what we have control over and what we don't, biophysiologically, intellectually, emotionally.
Yes.
Why do people need anxiety meds? Or do they have the freedom to not
They have
be
children.
anxious?
That is why. That is why I'm telling you, I'm taking them every day, and I got 3 reasons that I take them every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents. I'm just saying.
Very nice, very nice.
Wow.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation,
Yeah.
if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will.
Yes.
Our physiology, our neurochemistry,
Yes.
and physics.
Yes.
That surely that perimeter may grow,
Yes.
but it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow.
Yes.
Beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There.
Fair, but it's possible that it doesn't. It continues to grow, right? And as we learn more and more, we realize that nothing is really free will. That's possible too.
Very nice.
It's nebulous.
That's a great job.
It doesn't have to be absolute in one direction or another.
It's a bit more fluid. Okay.
And I'm okay with
Alright.
that. There is uncertainty in the universe. I embrace it.
That's a good conclusion. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. That was a deep, guys. Brody just joined me, but yeah, we can agree that was a very deep conversation. I enjoyed talking about that. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what to talk about next. I like these thought-provoking things, and I also like talking about sports. So whatever it is, just drop it in there, man. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get it.